and interesting plants can be found all over the world and even in your own backyard. Native plants make wonderful additions to the home landscape because they tend to be very well adapted to the local environmental conditions. Now, one native that we planted this year in the studio is called the Drummond's aster, or Aster drummondi, and it is a wonderful addition to the fall garden. This plant is very tough. It's adapted to a wide range of soil conditions, and also it takes varying light conditions. You could plant it in full shade to full sun, and in both situations it'll produce a magnificent floral display. The plant, you can see, is just covered with these beautiful, dainty, pale lilac flowers, and it just stands out and shouts, "Look at me," here in the fall. Now we can also turn to some tropical plants. Often we use tropicals to add a bit of color and maybe a little bit of taste of the exotic. This one's not as exotic looking as many of our tropicals, but it certainly has color. This is yellow cestrum, and it produces these nice dense clusters of yellow flowers. They're tubular shaped, and they kind of remind me of the cluster heads on a lilac, of course, here in yellow. And this plant thrives in the heat and the humidity, so it's going to do wonderfully in your garden. It's hardy to zone 8, so in the southern parts of the state, you might have a little bit of luck overwintering it. Otherwise, you can grow it as an annual. Another tropical that we have, and this has been one of my favorite new plants in the studio this year. This is a Chirita hybrid called Moonwalker. And this is a plant for the shade. It will tolerate morning light, but it will not take the hot sun in the afternoon. But the characteristics of it, you really want to put it in the shade anyway because it's going to add a great deal of light and brightness. The leaves are covered with fine hairs that give it this silvery sheen. And so it's really going to brighten up those dark spaces. Now this plant has flowered for us all season, and you can see it's getting ready to put on another set of flowers. One of them is open right now, and it has surprisingly large flowers for a plant this size. This deep purple, and they have a yellow and white throat. A lovely flower on a very beautiful plant. A nice graceful addition to the shade. One last place that growers and gardeners turn to when looking for new plants are the gardens of old. Gardeners have grown many beautiful plants over the centuries, and some of these have been passed from one gardener to another, and they've proved themselves worthy over and over again. A lot of our heirloom plants tend to also have good pest resistance because they were growing before we had chemicals to spray on them. And this is a southern heirloom Dianthus that we've been growing. Has wonderful deep green foliage, and the foliage is very tolerant of heat and humidity. This plant came from the Gulf states where there's of course high humidity to deal with and high heat all summer. And it has performed beautifully for us. Of course, in the spring, it's going to be covered with a wonderful floral display, and sometimes in the fall, you'll even get a few flowers come up for a little bit of a surprise.